Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you to be here. I'm always very honored to be in India, and especially in front of some very important and exclusive people as you are. I've been in India for the last 35 years. I really did all the steps. I saw the completely change of your country, and I should say that I'm very proud because my Indian friend, they always tell me that in my previous life I must have been an Indian, and maybe I will be in my future, my second life. So that's why I'm so honored to be here and so happy and proud. What I wanted to say is that I represent what Europe is doing, of course, looking also outside. Italy and Europe have been the first one to sign in Paris the New Deal and start to think about decarbonization of the globe. Of course, Europe, compared to the rest of the world, and especially compared to India, it's a very small portion. And it's not so polluted, and we don't have those problems of CO2 as you have here, of course, because of the population and so on. I only want to say that yesterday I was at the opening of the India Energy Week, and I was lucky and honored to be in the front row. So I heard and see the presentation and the welcome done by the Prime Minister Modi. By the way, he's one of my heroes now, you know, but anyway, he's done so much for India. So, and then the speech and the introduction of Mr. Puri Singh, Harmeet Puri Singh. And I think that they represent what the real world should be. And that's, I have to say, they represent what my fight I'm having almost every day in Europe with the European Commission. I'm president of NGV Italy, which is the largest association that represents all the industry and the industry and the fuel distribution in Italy, because in my board I have Eni, I have SNAM, I have Iveco, I have all the big deals, big subjects, big stakeholders. And we think, so I am in the front row to fight, not with my government, but to fight with European Union. And I have to say that I am a big fighter. I learned from, yes. And because we find out that, and that's what I learned also yesterday, that everybody, every country has to use what they have available, always thinking to one main subject, decarbonization. That's something that it has to be kept in our mind. But how to reach decarbonization? The word decarbonization is not a word that is disappeared. In Europe, disappeared. They only talk about you have to go electricity, that's all. They don't say why and how. And you are lucky here in India. You have sun, you have wind. We don't have much. And especially in Italy, we have mountains, we have very narrow streets and roads. So my trucks, that I represent also the fleet, they have to go from the Monte Bianco to Sicily, up to the mountain, the small villages, and I don't see now my truck go with batteries or fuel cells and so on. They need something else. So, like India, I think that the transition, it has to be done, I always say, with feet on the ground. And has to be not ideological, but it has to be pragmatic. So you have to use your homemade fuel, green fuels. And in order to have green energy and green fuels, we have different ways. Like yesterday, they explained our two gentlemen that I appreciate so much. So we have to go back to fossils, as the professor said before, because very often we don't think that, we always talk about CO2, but we don't know that there is also a very big danger that is done by pollution. And pollution, it's enough to go, for example, CNG. If everything would drive, all the mobility would be on CNG and ethanol and so on, we would have very, very low pollution. And pollution is the one that is very very difficult, very heavy for health of people. So the fact that the European Commission doesn't want to hear the word CNG or natural gas, that's one of the biggest mistakes I ever heard in my life. And I think that I represent all energy because I have trucks like Iveco, they have trucks electrical, they have trucks on fuel cell, they have trucks LNG, CNG, we have LPG, we have SNAM that is doing hydrogen. We are working very hard on any fuels of any source of energy. But, as I say, we have to look and be neutral. I was one that let me see. So what I say, each country has to look to what they can use, because we have to understand that we should not forget that we have to be flexible, we have to be sustainable, we have to be economically, have economic advantage for everybody. If we go to a system that says only electricity, well, I represent 41 million of cars in Italy, and half of them, they are very old. And I'm sure that the people who are owning these very old cars will never be able to buy an electrical car for years. So that means that we have to take care also of people economically disadvantaged and should not get the world only for rich people with a clean, a decarbonized world, but the rest of the people where it goes. And we have responsibilities also to countries that will take a long time to reach the 250 goal as we think. So let's talk about being neutral. In 2014, I was the one that with my technician and my representative at the European Union, we wrote what is called the DAFI. The DAFI was the regulation of how transport should be in the future here. And with the DAFI it was perfectly balanced, all kind of energy. Of course, it has to be clean energy. And that's why we started to really push for the biomethane or biofuels or molecular, because that's what we have to look. The molecular can be very clean. We can have molecular and bio LPG, we can have bio LNG. It depends on the country and what is more useful and economically advantage. I always say that at least in Europe, where electricity is extremely expensive, when I see a truck, when I see a bus that says zero emission, I say, well, that's not true. They are not zero emission. Where do you get the electricity? One day, sometimes I get really problem also with my mayors because I say that's not true. You get the electricity, most of it is from coal, and if you are lucky, from CNG that you don't want even to know about. So we have to be very sharp and think that when we say zero emission, we have to think to the well-to-wheel, which is not accepted, for example, by the European Union, and we have to think to the fact that we have also to think to what are we doing with all the batteries when something is finished, also with the panels and so on. So the life cycle assessment should be also a credo for everybody. We should not just say we want to clean, we want electricity, we want biofuel and so on. We have to take care of what's happening and where it comes from, and at the end, because at the end it's always CO2 emission. When you don't know what to do with the battery, and it's lots of emission that you are going to generate. So when we say decarbonization, we have to be very, 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 so. Oh, you see, that's the way I see the transition. It has to be with feet on the ground. Maybe women are a little bit more with feet on the ground than men, who are not so ideological, because we have to take care also how to manage the family, and at the end of the month to see that all the bills are paid and the children go to school and we put good food on the table. So that's what we have to do also with this transition if we really want to reach the decarbonization. If you want just to have one single fuel or one single source of energy, the decarbonization will be very, very far away, because I don't see how countries that do not have possibility to have panels and so on can reach this goal so fast. So that's we do, and that's what we want. So we go, I love electrical car in cities. Really, they are very easy, they are very, no noise, not at all, very smooth. The engine goes very well, because electric engine, of course, is the best. The car started with electric. The first car was electrical, so, but we have many problems, because we have, the market is not buying electrical cars, because of course it's a small city car, cheap, but now we have Chinese cheap city cars that are cheap. But when you have to invest lots of money in a car, and then you take so long to recharge, or they are so expensive, the market is not answering. So our OEMs are facing a huge problem. Some of them, like big names, that they were the bones of German economy, they are selling their office and their workshop and their plants to the Chinese, just to pay the fine. Because right now, in 25, they have to pay fine, 15 billion of fine, because they have not sold so many electrical cars as required by the Commission. And this money goes to the good one that have sold electrical cars. So this money is going to Tesla in Europe and to the Chinese cars that are present. So that's the story of decarbonization that's in Europe. And that's why I appreciate so much India, where when they use everything from ethanol. And yesterday I heard that from 5% it goes to 20% very soon. And the mixed fuel is the future. Is the future to reach a very fast decarbonization, because transportation is one of the main source of CO2. At least not so much in Europe, but in other countries. But we have to see that transportation is also a source of every country. Without transport, industry doesn't work. Industry cannot survive. I always say that during the COVID, if we didn't have our trucks going around the country, no matter of the big disease, we would not have any medicine, food, and so on. So transportation is what is very important. And when a truck costs, an electrical truck, or right now, still now, a hydrogen truck, costs 2.5 times more than a diesel, nobody's going to buy it. And that's the trouble, because at the end, it's always the market. So what they do, they don't buy trucks. They change work. And that's very bad. And that's what we have to understand. We have to help people. And that's it's part of our duty, responsibility, not only to clean the greenhouse. So that's what we say, recycling. And yesterday I heard that India is doing a big effort for recycling waste and so on. In Italy, we are the leader in biomethane. We started years ago. And I invite all of you to come and see our plants and so on. So biomethane right now in the grid of Snam, it's reached 70%. So we could say that the CNG going through the ground, going to the trucks and so on for transport, or also for cooking, because we are used for everything, it's very clean. So in the future we are going to use also other fuel, other sources to mix, like hydrogen and so on. We are testing, because we are testing 5%, 10%, 20%. We have to take care, also of the safety of the grids and so on. But that's the way, to help decarbonization, what we have available. So from water, electrolyzer, chemical combination, we are open to everything. We want to be neutral, everything at the right place, and at the right moment, and the right use, not just one. I always say that if you have one single bullet, is very dangerous. At least you have 2 or 3, because you can miss one. And so you always have to have at least 2 or 3. And that's it. So we have to push promoting supply chain, as I heard yesterday, from waste, from agriculture. And I think it's also a way to help some farmers, to help agriculture, because you give them a second life and so on, without starving people, because when we go and look for biomethane, we don't go the first or the second culture, we go to the third, because we don't want to get from the field what instead has to be used as food. So it has to be very intelligent, and as I say, we think that biomethane at the moment, it's the best fuel, biomethane, or well, you can have bioethanol and so on, is the best mean to start decarbonization. And step by step, we will reach the future, what is going to be. Who knows what is going to be in 2050? I don't know. When I am a pilot, and when I started to fly and had my first license, I was the first one. There were no other ladies, you know. I had my own plane and so on. Right now, you can see that even civil aviation, they have ladies that are pilots. So you never know what's going to happen in the future. And right now, we think that the only solution is electricity or hydrogen or biofuel. But maybe in future, we will have the wings. You know, Italy is the one that started, well, Icaro is it's Greece. They wanted to fly it, and so maybe at that time with drones and the intelligence, people will not need any other mean of transport, and also industry will find another way to survive without being energivorous. So that's part of what I'm pushing. That's if you have the possibility to have energy from solar and wind, hydrogen, it's one of the best options. And I think, and I see that India, it's really pushing for hydrogen. As a matter of fact, because I think that I have to find a way for my children, for my friends, from companies also in Italy that don't see in Europe a very bright future because of the economic position. And we have started a company in India called Anaga, just to bring the technology we have in the continent in Europe to India. And believe me, I didn't do it as a business. I did it because I love India. That will give me also the opportunity to spend more time in India, to be with you longer, and to bring what we have. And in Europe, in Italy, we really have high and topic experience to bring at the end to share it with you. So mainly right now we are talking about hydrogen projects and recycling. And what I want to say, and I always say to you when I do speeches, is not you have the best engineers. I mean, you are very, very bright. We can see that. For example, in United States, the Silicon Valley have Indians. Why? Because your brain is really top. So I'm sure that you don't need to buy and to look for technology outside of India. What you need is time. What you don't have is time. Time to have the experience, because you are rushing. You want to think fast. But you start just few years ago. In Europe, in Italy, we started 100 years ago to think to alternative fuels. It started at the time of Mussolini, before the Second World War. We had no gasoline. And my grandfather told me that they were even using wine or all kind of alcohol, you know, for cars. And so we started to try with Mattei, the CNG and the LPG to use for cooking, for electricity, for whatever. So we have the time, the experience done by time. And what you need now is to run fast. And that's what we can help the experience, because as I say, your brain is one of the top. So I don't want to offend and say we are bringing knowledge. You do your own knowledge. We are bringing time and experience. So that's at least what I think and what I like. So this is what we think. This is what I go around the world to say, because they call me from South America to Japan to Asia, all countries, and technology approach, biofuel, that can be bioethanol, biomethane, bio-LPG, and so on. Then we need incentive, because especially when we talk about hydrogen, at the moment, I'm sorry to say, but the government has to help, because it's still very expensive for everybody. So at the moment, the government, each government has to help. And that's why I think that countries like Africa and so on will have big problem to reach decarbonization within the time we ask, because it's still very, very expensive. So then we need to have a very, very in way to look at the project, to look at the need, and to find the best we can have without, going just one way. And then, of course, infrastructures are very, well, it's the need. No matter if you go electrical, no matter if you go CNG, no matter if you go bioethanol. So infrastructure are really what the government has to push in order to have a good transportation and a good decarbonization for the future. So thank you very much for listening to me, and we love you. I love you. Bye.